And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only podcast on the internet that knows that when you redact a redaction, it doesn't undo the redaction at all.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know that is because we are doctors.
But not doctors.
I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And this week on Doctors Not Doctors, we're going to discuss how Kier Starmer has seemingly survived his brush with political death.
Seriously?
And we are also going to talk about how his leader in Scotland, Isiah, definitely took a shot and missed. We will also take a look at the words of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, a billionaire in the UK who, surprise, surprise, has some pretty racist views. And looking at America, we're going to be talking about the Attorney General of America, your friend and my friend, Pam Bondi. In addition to the justice system, we're going to be looking at Mark Kelly and how that didn't work out for Trump. And of course, Patrick's Redacted Redactions. And finally, I seem to be getting into trouble in Minnesota, but not for the reasons you think. It's even worse than it could possibly be. All that and more coming up right now. So let's get going. This week has been very, very tenuous for the prime minister. I think that's fair to say for a number of reasons. Well, let me be for one reason. Last week, he admitted that he was aware of Peter Mandelson, member of the House of Lords, former UK ambassador, long-serving member of the Labour Party, potential architect of the new Labour project.
And all-around Prince of Darkness, it must be stated.
And all around Prince of Darkness. He was aware of his association with one Jeffrey Epstein, and of course Starmer didn't really do anything about that. And once
hold on, Chris. You say that Starmer knew about Mandelson's relationship in its fullness with Jeffrey Epstein and didn't do anything. And I think that that's wrong, Chris. I think that's incorrect because he did do something. He made him the ambassador to the United States.
You are correct. He was made the ambassador to the United States after he was aware of his association with Jeffrey Epstein. And it was only when the Epstein files came out that that it became clear that he could no longer be in that position. So he was removed as ambassador and then removed from the Labour Party, and he's now taken a step back from the House of Lords. He probably will eventually lose his peerage, but was that enough? Now, after we did our episode last week, Patrick did make a call. I'm sorry, in that episode, Patrick did make a call that somebody would have to go. And a number of people have left from inside the government, but the top name was already said by Patrick before it happened. And that name was?
Morgan McSweeney. That is correct.
The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, not too long after we had ended recording, I believe the next day, basically said that he was the person who advised the Prime Minister to make Peter Mandelson the UK ambassador. But of course, as somebody once said, advisors advise and politicians choose or decide.
Yeah.
And our ministers decide. And so McSweeney took responsibility for his part in this scandal, and he has left number 10. And now Starmer has basically spent the week on a kind of recovery tour, another reset for Labour, another chance for them to reset the books because they've only needed about 4 in the past 18 months.
It's going really well, Chris. So here's the thing, right, is that it is true that this is like the 17th version of Kier Starmer's Labour government 2.0. So they've had some trouble. They've had a little bit of rockiness, I think it's fair to say. But I do think that this time is different because every other time they've attempted to turn the page, put things behind them and move forward into the broad sunlit uplands, they did it with Morgan McSweeney basically being shadow prime minister. And now, for the first time in Kier Starmer's, leadership, where he doesn't have Morgan McSweeney telling him what to do. And I think this is, weirdly enough, an opportunity for him, if only he will grasp it.
If only he can see it.
I got to tell you, Morgan McSweeney, for whatever his skills as someone running a campaign are, and apparently those skills are quite formidable. He did, apparently, by all accounts, a very strong job of, corralling Labour and getting it over the finish line in an election that was theirs to lose because everyone wanted the Tories out. But, still, he did it. He did it, right?
Yeah, sure.
The thing is, the skills you need in order to be a good campaigner are not necessarily those you need to run a government. Because ultimately, your job as a campaigner, right, is to win over the other side, whereas your job in government is very often to win over the other side, to get people to work with you, to be able to find consensus, to build a coalition. And this is kind of the exact opposite of what it seems Morgan McSweeney's considered his job to be. Since the entire the entire project seems to have been purge the party of anybody who is slightly to the left of, Tony Blair as of 2010.
Yeah, no, the win over part, I think we should be clear. The winning over part is not winning over the opposition. It's winning over your own party. You have 400 and change. They came in with 400 and something, 13 or 12 members, I believe. And not all of a lot of them will be new. A lot of them are vetted by Mandelson. A lot of them, but a lot of them would have been there before, would have been old school labor. You got your John McDonnell's in there. You got your Diane Abbotts. You got your Rebecca Long Baileys. These people, they are left wing through and through. So I'm sure they went in there just like in 1997, assuming that with such a large majority, they could just kind of cajole people into a position that would work for them. But a lot of these guys came in, and this isn't 1997, right? Which is now almost 30 years ago. Right? Yeah, that's super great to think about. It's not 1997, so you can't just tell you can't just tell somebody get in their face, swear at them, and scare the hell out of them. There's people who came in 2024, and they immediately were like, we need we need a better home life balance. Why are we why are we here till 10 o'clock? They started asking, frankly, very logical questions for the average person. But for anyone who's worked in Parliament for longer than a year, that, on Monday nights, you're going to be there sometimes until at least 10 o'clock. Yeah. And on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and you're going to be there a little bit later. It's not a 9 to 5. So, get used to it. Get ready for whatever the hell comes down the line. And most importantly, you're a backbencher, new Labor MP. So your opinion means fuck all to the government and to the party apparatus. But a lot of them, they went in there like, we're going to change the world, as many people do when they come into the UK Parliament, and then immediately see how the world works and then goes directly to the bar.
Well, at least it's a good use of their time. But no, I mean, seriously, right? It would make sense from a basic standpoint of, we have a massive majority, we can afford to lose quite a few votes. We can allow space for people to disagree with us in the backbenches in order to maintain themselves, etc. But they, I think, went well beyond that. I don't think that they had the ability to count, because they had quite a few situations where there were enough defections that they were forced to back down, where they knew that a bill they were going to put forward was not going to pass. But
that was not the initial plan. That came about from effectively pragmatism, because the original idea wasn't that we have enough people where we can lose something. That's not how UK politics works. The government doesn't lose, and you don't defect. If you can't vote for the government, you don't vote. You definitely don't vote against their policy. You don't know, because that's your policy. You stood in the same manifesto. You are a Labour member of Parliament. You are a member of a political party. That's what taking the whip is. And as everybody knows, I work for the SNP and everything I say is my own. But you taking but that's what happens when you have a whip, and specifically, I work in the whip's office, right? So when you
this
work,
is personal.
When you say, all right, I'm going to be a member of this party inside the Parliament or inside the Commons, you don't then get to say, well, I'm only going to support you as and when, because at that point you could just be an independent member and join in with that particular party and then, as and when.
Exactly, right. Well, I think that's a very good point, and I think that makes perfect sense right up until you get to a situation where the whip's office is asking you to vote against something that was in the manifesto, or vote for something that was against the manifesto, or that, and I think that's ultimately one of the big problems that sort of the Starmer regime has had, is that they've consistently asked their members to vote for things that are anathema to most Labor politicians and members of the Labor Party and Labor voters in general, and people who don't vote Labor but might in the next election.
Yeah.
So it's just like asking people to swallow this poison pill, and it baffles me that they didn't seem to think that they needed to seriously correct course, not just in the sense of, okay, well, this bill is going down in flames. This is really bad. We need to pull the bill so we don't get deeply embarrassed, but also saying, hey, maybe we need to rethink what it is we're asking our members to do.
That would have been smart of them to actually do some introspection. And I won't say who I was talking to in Labor, but I knew a few people. But just kind of kind of as almost as a passing note, he was just like, there are so many of them. How do we control them? And in my head, I was like, you don't. I mean, it's 400 people that, all of whom have individual cases to win. Now, obviously, a lot of them will be running on the back of the leader of the party, which is why what happened in Scotland happened in Scotland, which I think we should turn to that now.
It's time to turn attention, towards the north of this grand island.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the head of Scottish Labour, would you, Chris?
Well, Anas Sarwar is the head of Scottish Labour, former MP down here. I believe he stopped being an MP, I think, in 2015, and then he became an MSP, was a member of the Scottish Parliament. And for those of you who don't know, the UK has devolved legislatures, which are like very weak state legislatures, and they're based in the capitals of the nations of the United Kingdom, bar the England, because England's for a while devolved parliament was Westminster. It no longer is. So Sarwar became the leader of Scottish Labour at some point, I don't remember, and he's basically been trying. He's got an election coming up, so he's been trying to create some very clear space between himself and the SNP, and there seems to be something getting in the way of his message, which is all the things that the Labour government have been doing, which are I will affectionately call dog shit. So. He's been having issues, and specifically because the Labour Party is currently the third largest party in the Scottish Parliament. The Conservative Party is second, and the SNP is the largest. It's the government of Scotland,
right?
Woo! And but the polling shows now that I think that Reform might be the second highest polling political party in Scotland, followed by potentially Labour and then the Tories. And I'll actually check on that when we get a chance. But that doesn't look like their political fortunes are going to be looking any better. So on Monday, there was a scheduled meeting between Kier Starmer and the Scottish Labour Party, where members of the Scottish Parliament, MSPs, would come down into Westminster, into Number 10, and they would have a meeting with the Prime Minister. So they could, I guess, talk about things. There's an election coming up in May. There are local elections here in England. There are elections in Wales. There's elections in Scotland. And Labour have to basically do very well in England. They have to do very well in Wales, and they have to do very well in Scotland, where the SNP have been in charge since 2007. So, so obviously, a loss in any one of these places would be damaging for Labour. A loss in all three would be untenable for Starmer to keep his position. So Sarwar has basically snapped. It seemingly snapped. And instead of coming down with the rest of his troop, he is the leader of Scottish Labour, but Scottish Labour isn't really a separate, distinct entity from the Labour Party. It is the Labour Party in Scotland, but it's not like the SNP where it is its own thing, or like the Scottish Green Party. It's its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Scottish Labour is not a separate party to Labour. It is rather sort of the Scottish section of the Labour Party. Do I have that correct? Or
that's what I believe their relationship is to the full Labour Party, because obviously if they were their own independent party, for lack of a better word, if they were their own independent party, then they could really pull away from Starmer when needed. Exactly. However, they've never done that. They've always been very, very close with obviously linked up with regular full fat labor. So instead of going down with his MSPs, the leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, who is an MP for Glasgow, somewhere in Glasgow, I think, he basically got in front of a giant saltire and basically said, for the good of the country, the prime minister has to go. And he said, effectively, you have to go because you're distracting my campaign against the SNP.
Right.
Therefore, you have to go, but it's for the country. It's definitely not for the party. It's only for the country. But P.S., you're ruining my campaign. And
more than one thing could be true at a time, Chris. You know, some things are overdetermined. I'm sure Mr. Starmore might argue.
I'm sure he might argue it, but here's the kicker, right? So as Starmer's position wasn't really solidified by Monday morning, by Monday afternoon when this came out, because basically it became public knowledge at like noon ish, maybe 11:30, maybe noon, that Sarwar was going to do this. Yeah, and all of a sudden you realize that that's a very big deal. Now he isn't going to be the biggest name in UK politics, but the leader of one of your branch offices effectively is saying it's time for you to go. And theoretically that would be because he's a leader, we have collective responsibility. You'd assume that all the MSPs are now with him on that. And of course, every Scottish Labour MP is technically Scottish Labour as well, including the Secretary of State for Scotland. And I think Ian Murray, who was the Secretary of State for Scotland, but now I think he's a junior minister at Culture, Media and Sport. So that means that now Sarwar is at 2:30 came out and said, he started his speech, and he said that, and the assumption is that he has about 35 Scottish Labour MPs and a number of Scottish MSPs. He's got 2 cabinet members or 2 ministers, 1 cabinet member with him. It's a pretty big deal. In the middle of his speech, David Lammy puts out support for the prime minister. No one had done that yet. No minister had come out in favor of the prime minister because we didn't know what was going to happen. And David Lammy was the first domino to go over. And he's just like, the prime minister deserves our support and he's done his job and blah, blah, blah. And then it just started coming down. And all of the cabinet members, started to pile in behind him. And then the Secretary of State for Scotland piled in behind the Prime Minister. Ian Murray piled in behind the Prime Minister. Members of the Scottish Labour Party in Westminster piled in behind the Prime Minister, leaving Anna Sarwar effectively by the end of his speech, just like out there on his own, having just called for his boss to fuck off.
Yeah, that's not the best position to be in. I think we can all agree, strategically speaking, that when you climb out on a limb, you really don't want to start sawing it off behind you. But it kind of seems like this is, I mean, this can't be great for him. How much of a threat is this to his position, out of curiosity? Well,
that's interesting because the Scottish media have been doing their best, from what I can read, to soften the blow. People are saying things like, because obviously the Scottish media is, I should be careful how I refer to the Scottish media. Okay. But the Scottish media has often preferred, not all of it, but they've been a bit more tuned towards the Tories and right-wing stuff. There are some newspapers like the Record, which are very much pro-Labour, and there's really only one pro-SNP paper in Scotland called the National. So
shocking to hear.
I know. So you have like 2 kind of papers that are trying to soften the blow and also try to turn whatever damage can be made towards Starmer. And if it was anyone else had done this, if you could take the political leans and slants of these papers and organizations out of it, the leader of the Scottish Labour Party having a go at the leader of the UK Labour Party, one of you has to go at the end of that statement, right?
It really kind of seems like it, right? Like that is, and I mean, I'm a little bit surprised, to be perfectly frank, that Starmer's the one who ended up surviving this particular, tete-a-tete, just because his position looked incredibly fragile. But since he has apparently survived it, he has apparently the support of the rest of the Labour Party, including Angela Rayner, which is, I got to say, that's very big of her. That's
and
very
Andy Burnham. and
Yeah.
Andy Burnham. Like,
Yep.
like Sarwar went out there and he basically pushed everybody into a support or defect moment, and like we said last week, there's no heir apparent, there's no exit ramp, there's no one to put your bucks behind. It's just empty space. So what are you going to do? There's nothing to do yet. So sit down, shut up, and figure it out. And
the time is not yet right.
The time is not yet right. Now is not the time. So the biggest issue is basically now Starmer has basically said, I don't want him to go. Sarwar said we wanted to stay and he's fine and we need to start attacking the SMP again. And Sarwar is just kind of like, we need to move on from this. And
I will thank everyone not to mention this again.
It's kind of like slapping your mom in the face and then being like, so we good?
Boy, that was a wild moment. That was just wild.
Wasn't that crazy?
Hey, everybody, crazy. Crazy. You remember when that happened 5 minutes ago? That was crazy.
Wild. Let's move on from that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what they're trying to do. But it was a big moment last week or this week. Sorry.
Talk about a dog that didn't bark. I think this is a real indication of like just how weak Starmer's position remains, right? Because if he felt completely secure, then obviously Starmer has to go.
Yeah,
if
of course.
You think that your position is not at all secure, but like you've gotten a reprieve, you've had your brush with death, and now it's time to figure out what the hell to do going forward, because now it turns out that the operating system you've been running, MorganMcSweeney.com, is now 100% gone. So what do you replace it with? And I suspect that may be one of the reasons why we haven't seen a really strong attempt at a leadership challenge, even aside from the fact that, do you really want to be prime minister at this particular moment, when everything kind of just sucks and you have, you've got some time left to turn it around, but it's going to be tough. I feel like a lot of the people otherwise might have been very interested in launching such a challenge. I think a lot of them are saying to themselves, look, McSweeney's gone. There's the possibility of getting someone new in, and then Starmer will do what they say, because that's kind of what Starmer was doing with Morgan McSweeney. It seems, maybe you get a better operating system in there and maybe you can start making some headway,
Yeah, maybe. But Starmer has so many problems. He's already got another pedophile scandal. He appointed somebody in the House of Lords who was another friend of a person in Scotland who was also in Scottish Labour, who had a lot of bad images. Let me put it to you like that.
Did he know about it though? Because that's the thing that makes the Epstein scandal so problematic, right?
And basically that's the issue. Did he know? And Stephen Flynn asked that question at PMQs. Which, by the way, let's end it on this one. PMQs is wild, because obviously this week PMQs was a big deal, and it was make or break for the prime minister. His party came out with a very forced right, and you could tell that they're screaming, but their heart really wasn't in it. They just have to do it because don't go yet, please. We're still buying our websites and stuff. And again, Kimmy was she just doesn't know how to weave. She doesn't know how to move. She doesn't have the mental dexterity to just kind of go flow with the punches. And they both had to go at each other, but he was just raging at everyone. Every attack was met with a massive counter-political attack, some of which may even get into trouble because, as people know, there is the former chief executive of the party of the SNP. There's a case against him in Scotland, which he mentioned in his question when Stephen asked him about this dude from Scottish Labour who had all these kid images, and he started throwing out don't talk about this guy because your guy's going to be in court, and he's just like, hang on, wait a second, you're not supposed to talk about that because it's an active case, dick.
Yeah, so that could be problematic. You really don't want to have a prime minister weighing in on. Yeah.
So, we have to, he was he had his Weetabix on Wednesday. and
honestly, that might, even with the potential for a minor scandal there, that might actually play relatively well with some of the people who've been desperate to see Kier Starmer be anything other than what Kier Starmer sort of has been,
and I think it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
let's move on to the last bit here for the UK section.
All right.
And it's something that we did not realize was going to happen yesterday. So
when we carefully plotted out exactly what we were going to speak about and wrote our notes down like, adults. Yeah.
Like adults would. And it involves a person who I only heard of in passing. His name is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Okay. And yesterday, kind of mid-afternoon, early evening, there was breaking news in between shots of Pam Bondi screaming at people.
But we'll get there.
We will get there. And basically they were talking to Jim Ratcliffe, who's the CEO of Ineos, which is like a chemicals company. They make soap and different things like that. Mm-hmm. And he also is part owner of Manchester United. He's a billionaire worth 17 billion pounds. And I think they were talking about the economy and how things get better. And he basically said, we need to deal with immigration. Oh, big surprise. Billionaire really doesn't like immigration. Then he said, you can't have 9 million people in reference to London, 9 million people on benefits. And I'm like, hang on, wait a second. London does not have what? London's not a town of a bunch of poor people.
Yeah, that's it's absurd.
And then he finished it off with the UK has been colonized by immigrants. The UK has been colonized by immigrants. Now, today, he's kind of walked it back and said one of those things where if you're upset, that's your own thing. But I'm sorry that you got upset because you're a snowflake. But just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's can I tell you my favorite bit? My favorite bit, Chris?
Sure.
So, okay, right after he said the UK has been colonized by immigrants, really, hasn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020, and now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people. Now, that's just freaking delightful, Chris.
Yes,
because
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, because that means that he wasn't, misspeaking. He did not inaccurately say a number, but he really meant the correct number. No, he clarified that he didn't mean to say 68 million and it said 58 million because that happens, because people are people, right? You make mistakes and it's fine.
Yeah.
No, he clarified that 70 minus 58 is indeed 12. And thus he meant both 70 and 58. For the record, yeah.
Oh, I know that's wrong, by the way. I know that's wrong.
Would you like to know the actual population of the UK in 2020?
Sure.
67 million.
Okay. Yeah. Now check this out. Mm-hmm. When I moved to the UK in 2009, the population of the UK was at 65 million. I know that for a fact. It was 65 million people. And so in the intervening, that was 11 years, it had gone up by 2 million people.
Yep.
Which is wild. First off, that's not that much. I understand that the UK is not the biggest place on earth, but trust me, not everybody's living out in the middle of the Cotswolds. So that is to claim, first off, wrongly.
The Lake District is full, Chris.
It's paved over. It's cement. It's like Coruscant.
Ben Nevis is entirely full of tourists every single day.
There's no more water.
Yep.
Loch Ness is just Nessie and a bunch of Holiday Inns or travel lodges.
Indeed.
But to say that it was 58 million in 2020 and now it's 70 million is the height of fucking ignorance. And it's just one more sign that these stupid ass billionaires, because they have money, they think that they're walking geniuses. Like Elon Musk isn't a genius. He doesn't make anything. He buys things, right?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. He's not an engineer. He's never been an engineer. He is not a coder. He's never really been a coder. This isn't what he does. He is, and this is going to shock some people, a capitalist. That's an actual thing you can do if you've got capital, is be a capitalist. Your job is to make money from the money that you have. That's called capitalism. That is literally how the economic system works. Marx wrote consistently about it. You can go check it out if you're into that kind of thing. But it's so weird that we've managed to forget the idea that no, capitalism implies the existence of capitalists, and capitalists, for good or for ill, are people who make money from money. They buy things and they make money from the things that they own.
Yeah.
And maybe you can also be a really cool, sweet ass engineer on top of being a capitalist, but you don't got to be. That's not a necessary part of being super rich.
No. Being super rich doesn't mean you have to be smart to do it. And And obviously this guy is proof of it. And again, he's trying to use, as all these people on the right have done, and obviously he's going to be on the right. He's supported Brexit, by the way. Which obviously,
no, surely not.
No, but like, and again, it's using immigrants as your boogeyman to basically deregulate the world so that you can make even more money and make even less money. You need those 9 million people in London, by the way, to work for you and to buy your stuff. Yes.
It is like it is probably worth mentioning just a little bit that London is the economic engine of the United Kingdom, like
for now.
To the point where like one of the biggest political divides in this country has been the fact that London is this massive center of capital and of growth because of all this money that has been flowing into it, to the detriment, many would argue, and I think they have a very strong case, of the old manufacturing centers that have been very much undercut by the Thatcher government and the shift towards the finance, insurance,
service industries.
Exactly, right? Yeah. It's such a perverse thing to say that, like, oh yeah, London's been overwhelmed by people with benefits, and when like that's this is where all the money is, But it's also, I think he was implying the benefit line for for London when he said 9 million people. Obviously, London's the only place in the UK that has 9 million people in it. But back to your comment about it being the economic driver and engine of the UK. First off, yes, it is 25% of the entire population of the UK lives within 2 hours drive of this city. Yep. If you look at population density maps, if you go down the M1. Oh no, M5. I don't drive. If you go down, I think it's the M1. You could just see, like, as you on the edges of the M1 on the way to London, it's just like, oh, okay, so that's where the people are, and it gets thicker as you get towards London. However, that might be changing. You cannot buy a house here. You cannot. It's hard to raise a family here if you're not making over six figures. People obviously do it, and they're all heroes for giving it a go. I mean, I was on a bus just today with lots and lots of kids after school, so people are still doing it. But it is tenuous, and so people are, I think, might be starting to leave, go to other places, which will then raise their prices, and maybe London's will come down. Who knows? I mean, but it will always be London. It's always London. Right. But it's always going to attract people. And finally, immigration obviously isn't a bad thing. And when they say immigration, they mean they don't mean Swedish, they don't mean French, they don't mean German. They're talking about brown people. So this is just racism. Our culture's going away. Well, you know what? Talk to India, Kenya, South Africa, Jamaica, the Bahamas, the United States of America before it became the United States of America. It might be said that that English emigres have had quite a big impact on the cultures around the world, on account of like 25% of the world's landmass was controlled by the British Empire. It was a whole thing. You could read about it. You
could argue that India was colonized by immigrants in the 16, 17, 18, and 1900s, and yet here we are. Yeah. So I think we should take a little break as we get into everything that happened in America over the past 48 hours.
Yep. I'm gonna need a good minute to just sort of breathe in, center my chakras, that kind of thing. Really, I gotta find my peace, Chris, before we unleash the Kraken.
Before it happens. Yep. Right. We'll see you then. And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's turn our collective attention towards these United States.
Well, that's North America first. Before we move forward, we should acknowledge that there have been 2 school attacks, one here in London and one in Canada. One a stabbing of a student or two here in London and Brent, and fatal shooting in Canada. So while we don't have a lot of time to get into them today, we'll keep an eye on these things, as the one in Canada will likely become a political hotbed sooner rather than later. But obviously, hopefully, these things happen fewer and far between. Moving on, it's been an interesting week in the United States, specifically yesterday, and a lot of things have happened over the past week. But I think we need to start with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who we've talked about before. Pam Bondi is a hack. And I'm not a lawyer, but even I can see that, she has spent most of her time trying to get herself into positions of power. And once she gets there, she protects those who got her into those positions of power.
Mm-hmm.
And she apparently spent her time in Florida defining herself as a protector of children. However,
how times have changed.
This week, she appeared before the House Judiciary Committee, I believe, led by Jim Jordan, which is its own thing. And she came in ready to fight because she was not fighting for justice. She was fighting for a job. She knew that Trump was watching, and not Adam Schiff, the representative. I can't think of his name right now, but the leading Democrat on the committee basically said, when I basically laid out the law for her, he had to go at her. And, she was just ready there to fight and also to make clips for Fox News. And she did not disappoint. Some of the highlights of them, I think there's only one highlight you need to hear. And if I had the ability, I would just play it for you, but I don't know how to do that yet. But she effectively said that Donald Trump was the greatest president in American history. That's a real thing she said, as a retort to a question from a member of Congress. She said, "Look at the Dow." She said, "Look at the Dow."
The Dow is over $50,000.
$50,000
I mean, like this, and this is amazing, right? Because this was in the context of being asked about the Epstein files and specifically whether or not she had spoken to the victims, and her response.
Who were all behind her, by the way.
Who were behind her? Yeah, but not all of them.
Yes, not all.
I know, because there's thousands, Chris, but quite a few were there. And they had chosen to identify themselves. They'd chosen to stand up. They'd chosen to raise their hands, and they'd chosen to make clear that they had been requesting to meet with the Department of Justice for months, and that they have had no meetings with the Department of Justice. They have requested to meet with the FBI to give testimony. They have had no meetings whatsoever. So when Pam Bondi is being confronted with like the absolute proof of the fact that if they were attempting to bring justice to the wronged, if they were attempting to do the right thing, that they had failed miserably. Instead, her response was to say, "But look at the Dow.
Look at how popular Trump is. Look at how great Trump is." So much of it was, and the other opposite was that if the Democrat asked a question, she'd say, "Why didn't you ask Merrick Garland? Why didn't you ask Joe Biden?" It was like, she is a lawyer. And therefore, you're at, like, when somebody says, "Why didn't you do this?" Her response was, "Well, why didn't you ask the guy who was here before me?" I'm like, hang on. That's not an answer.
Well, it is an answer. If what you mean to say is because, you didn't do this thing before, therefore I don't have to do anything, because, I think the idea is basically, there's an old saying among lawyers, and it's a great one, which is this: when you have the law behind you, you pound the law. When you have the facts behind you, you pound the facts. When you got nothing behind you, you pound the table.
There it is.
And that is what Pam Bondi was doing. The whole point is to create it's like an octopus or squid spewing ink, right? Just making a huge mess everywhere so that everyone forgets what was actually happening right before that happened. And this is something the administration does repeatedly. You could see it. So I don't know if you remember, but not too long ago, there was a whole mini scandal about Donald Trump saying to a female reporter, "I never see you smile. Why don't you smile? You know why you're smiling."
That was last week.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not telling the truth. Do you want to know what the context was for all of that?
Yes, I would love to know the context for all of that.
Her asking Donald Trump about the Epstein files.
That's right. Right. They're trying so hard to push people away from talking about this. Yeah.
When this happens, it is clear what has happened, which is that Donald Trump does not want to talk about the Epstein files. He thinks everyone should just move on. And when someone asks him about it, he immediately attacks it. He goes nuclear,
He attacks the person.
And then everyone talks about his attack on the person and not about the fact that he is refusing to answer basic questions about the Epstein files, and that's the story.
Yeah, and that is what Bondi was doing as well, because in the interim, people are asking her questions about why did you redact the names of the potential abusers. Some people who were writing things like, "I loved the torture video," right?
Jesus.
And for some reason they blocked out that name. Les Wexner, his name appears, I believe, in the Epstein files thousands of times.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Les Wexner, he is the CEO of Victoria's Secret. He is a billionaire, and he, apparently gave just an insane amount of money to Jeffrey Epstein, for
reasons,
financial advice,
reasons
that you could get on the internet with a quick Google search.
Reasons. Yeah. And so that was one of the questions, like, why was Wexner's name blotted out all these times? And she basically said his name appeared 4,000 times in the files, and they weren't blacked out then, and that's that and the other. And it's just like, no, I don't care about the 4,000 times. I care about the one time that's incriminating to him. Why was that specifically blocked out? There's rumors, not rumors. I'm sorry. I think we'll talk about them later. The pair of representatives.
Yeah, Massey and Khanna,
who basically said Trump's name appears in the files 1 million times.
Yeah.
And yet
there's 3 million documents. That's one out of every 3 documents if it's evenly distributed.
If it's evenly distributed, if it's a normal distribution, it'll be 1 out of every 3 documents, but it could be a spike and an abnormal. Anyway, but the point being is that her responses to every Democrat, and then of course I think Massey's on the committee as well, and to Massey, was petulant, immature. It was childish. It was worse than a college student government session. It was, and she has this little burn book, and it was, the burn book was referred to, and basically inside the burn book there was, well, in your district and this, that, and the other, and why did you do this? And she has basically all these things. So instead of answering the question, she just throws ad hominem attacks at you, right?
Yeah. Because she can't answer the question, because the actual answers to those questions, I suspect, would mean the end of her position.
Of course. And that kind of gets to the final point here. First off, before I do that, inside that book as well, legislators were allowed to look at the Epstein files and go through the, I think maybe unredacted, and then, we'll get to that in a second. But you were able to look at them, and then you're able to search. And the DOJ was tracking the search history of the legislators looking into the files. So think of what they're doing to everyone else who's looking into those files. I don't look at them at home. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and then inside the book today, I think it's true that they basically, there's a picture of Bondi going through her burn book, and somebody snapped a picture of Prial Gile.
Jamila Pam. No, I'm screwing up her name. This is terrible. I know it. And now I've managed to mess it up. Give me 1 second, please, and I'm going to find it.
Well, they looked inside.
Pramila Jayapal.
Oh
yes. My God! Thank you, Axios, for providing me with the name of a person whose name I know.
We're happy to be sponsored. Basically, they zoomed in, and they basically made the image vertical, and it basically had her name, what she searched, and each file that she searched.
That is inside the information that she has any business keeping in her burn book.
So
what possible legitimate purpose could she have for that?
And this is the point. The point is that she was doing what the first press secretary did. She's doing what Caroline Levitt does. She is loud, she is screaming, she is energetic, because she knows that Trump is watching, and she knows her job is on the line. She knows that they're not entirely happy with the handling of the Epstein files, because there are still some references to Trump. And the stuff that's gone in there is terrible. And obviously she hasn't done a good enough job of protecting Trump. So she needed to go out here, and she acted a total fool, an embarrassment to, the Department of Justice. Will go down as the worst attorney general in American history.
And that's impressive, considering the attorney general who served under Nixon. Seriously, there is there's no bottom, Chris. There's no bottom
No,
to this.
there is no bottom to this, and it's very important. I mean, the way that she acted, I think, is just if the tables are turned, and it was if we were in a normal world, or if a Democrat had done that, they would be out of a job today. They would have been fired or impeached. One of the two would have happened. But because we are living in a world where MAGA Republicans their spines were somewhere in 2004, she will continue on in her job in persecuting only the president's political enemies and potentially allegedly protecting pedophiles.
I mean, well, here's the thing, right? And I want to be very, very careful in what I say here. The Attorney General is currently breaking the law, and she is breaking the law because the law says that they had to release the Epstein files, and the only redactions they were allowed to make were to protect the victims, and that they could not redact anyone's name who was named as a perpetrator or for reasons of embarrassment. That literally, it was simply, you can redact images of violence and assault, images, child sexual abuse material. You can redact and must redact the names of victims there. And it says explicitly, you cannot redact things like the names of perpetrators. And it says all that information had to be released back in December, and that they had to explain every single redaction that they made. And every single one of those things, they are in violation of.
They released the names of the victims. They released naked pictures of the victims, all in the files.
So this is incredibly bad. And the thing is, right, why are they breaking the law? In what ways are they breaking the law? Well, not only are they revealing the names of victims, but we know that they are redacting, like pretty often, the names of people who have been accused of crimes. The list of potential co-conspirators that the Department of Justice at the time was looking at, their names have all been blacked out. Their names have all been redacted. They are explicitly protecting the people who were suspected of being Jeffrey Epstein's collaborators in his horrific set of crimes. So for Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, to sit in front of Congress and under oath say there is no credible evidence of anyone else being involved in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, well, that was just a lie. And I think that man committed perjury.
Yeah, I mean, hell, him, Lutnick, potentially Bondi. If anyone who's P.S. It's Jamie Raskin. I couldn't think of his name before.
Jamie Raskin, of course.
Yes, who was the head on the impeachment hearings? I believe no, it was Schiff, but I think Raskin was in there as well. Long story short, I think you're right. I think that these people have they've done a wrong, they've done a boo-boo. When they said there's nothing out there, there's nothing to be seen here, and then the files come out and everything is to be seen, and they're just going to pretend like get over it. Like Lutnick, we were talking about him last week, and then this week had to
appear in front of Congress, and under oath, he admitted that he went with his wife and children to Jeffrey Epstein's child rape island for lunch. They went for lunch. It was just a perfectly normal lunch at a rapist's private island, like you do.
With his family. His family. And then his family and kids left. And there it is. And he laughs the whole way through this. He thinks this is hilarious.
I mean, this is a man who lied to the American people to cover up his involvement with the worst child molester in American history that we know of, right? So, I mean, this is a man who, if he actually believed that the lives of children mattered, if he actually believed that Jeffrey Epstein committed terrible crimes, right, then he would have said, look, I mean, he was a mate, hung out with him. I didn't know about anything that he did. It's horrifying now looking back on it, when we had lunch on his island. If only I had known. That's what he would have said, right?
Yeah.
But instead, what he does is he lies. And then when he's caught, he laughs. And that tells you who he is.
Yeah.
Maya Angelou had a very famous quote, which was, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. And it is one of the inexplicable elements of American politics that we have a situation where the Department of Justice has consistently broken the law and lied and obscured the facts and has hidden the names of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged co-conspirators. It has done all of this again and again and again, and at no point does anyone in the media seem willing to draw the obvious and ineluctable conclusion that this is on purpose. The thing that they do consistently is something that they mean to do. And I don't know how you fail to draw that conclusion.
And that's fair. Speaking thereof, moving on to the next stop.
We probably should, because we needed to get that one out. Yeah.
Good. But moving on to the next topic, because it is related to justice. This week, Mark Kelly and several other legislators had a ruling in the was it Department of Justice?
Yeah. So, basically, right. For those of you keeping track at home, Senator Mark Kelly, who is ex-military, well-regarded, ex-astronaut as well.
Yeah.
And so, this is a guy who was served in combat. So he's not coming from nothing on the whole, experience of being a soldier front. Him and several other ex-military members of Congress from the Democratic Party put out a statement a few weeks ago, reminding American soldiers of their oath to the Constitution and the fact that under military law, and this is true, they have a duty to disobey illegal, unconstitutional, and deeply immoral orders, right?
Yeah.
And this is a thing. This is a statement of the law as it currently exists. Donald Trump's response to this, Chris, was to say, this is sedition punishable by death.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a perfectly normal thing for, a president to say about members of the legislature under any circumstances. But so it's particularly interesting because the president never served.
Bone Spurs.
Yeah, Captain Bone Spurs over there. Yeah, he never served in the military. He is, there are those who have every reason to know, who have said that they heard him refer to Americans who died in World War I as suckers, losers. This is a man who disrespects the American military to an absurd degree. So for him to decide that actually any criticism of him, which wasn't even criticism of him, didn't mention him by name, but just said, you have a legal duty to disobey illegal orders, that this is something that they have to be killed for this, right?
Well, executed, because it's sedition against the leader.
Right, but sedition against the leader is not like, I don't think that's a crime punishable by death in the United States.
Well, not yet.
Well, no, that'll never be a law, Chris. That'll just be a thing that they do.
It'll just be the convention.
Right. Well, they've done it with Alex Preddy. So,
Yeah, Renee Good as well.
Yup. So, they've and quite a few other people as well. It must be stated that they've got a body count, and it's not a small one.
Yeah.
But so Donald Trump then basically demanded that the Department of Justice bring charges against Senator Mark Kelly. And
let me interject here real quick.
Yeah, go on.
And the Department of War was asked to court-martial him.
Oh, yes.
I think he was reactivated.
Yeah, to recall him to active service in order to court-martial him for, and this is where we really run into the fun bit, for using his First Amendment rights, which are protected by the First Amendment. And also, this is a really funny thing. Did you know, Chris, that in the U.S. Constitution, there's a whole thing that says that serving members of Congress cannot be arrested for the things that they say, that they cannot be sued.
Yeah. Oh, that's
the things that they
same
say.
Here. Yeah, you basically have the freedom of speech to say what you want, and without fear of reprisal.
Because that's the point of a legislature. You have to have that. Otherwise, you cannot have anything approaching an actual honest-to-God legislature, right? Like, this is one of those sine qua non, thingies.
Yeah.
So this attempt to bring the carceral state to bear against sitting members of Congress for exercising their First Amendment rights, to state the law as it actually exists. I think any lawyer would tell you that this is a weak case, in the sense that it is not a case, right? And so when they brought charges against a grand jury, because the whole idea is you get a grand jury to sign off, you get a majority of them to say, yeah, we think there's enough evidence that this warrants a court case, right? And for the record, out of like hundreds of thousands of court case or of prosecutions brought before grand juries by the federal government every single year, like normally 5 result in no bill.
And what does no bill mean?
No bill is when the grand jury says, you don't have a case. There's not a thing. You don't have probable cause.
Yeah.
You don't have. This is not enough to bring a court case against. And for the record, a grand jury situation is unopposed, right?
Right.
So it's not like, the potential defendant, his lawyer is there, and the lawyer is going to say, well, okay, the prosecution says they have this, but here's what really happened. Here's what my client says. This is why you shouldn't believe that evidence. There's nothing like that. It is literally a situation where the grand jury, 24 of you or so, are sat in a room, and the prosecutor says, we think this person committed a crime. Here's evidence that we have that we think means that they committed the crime. We think that's enough to bring a case, basically. And then the grand jury says, yes, okay, because lunch is coming and I want to get out of this room.
Yeah.
We've said it before, we'll say it again. There's a very old phrase in the law in the United States that a good prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
And that's not just because people want to get to lunch.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So this is a situation where if you have more than one of these no bills in your, career as a prosecutor, it looks bad. That looks bad. That's like once maybe, as a total accident, like, whoa, oh my God, right? But 2 times is a terrible, terrible sign. So the Trump administration has had quite a few of these at this point. Like that's like,
yeah.
So the sandwich hero, if you remember the sandwich hero.
Yes, the person who threw a sandwich at ICE.
In DC. He did. The grand jury refused to indict him. They gave a no bill on that. You've had similar no bills when it came to protesters who were arrested for protesting ICE and what have you.
Yeah.
And now there's been a no bill returned when it comes to Senator Mark Kelly and the other members of Congress who committed literally no crime using their constitutional rights when they are also sitting members of the legislature, and you can't even sue them for libel because that's how strong their protections for speech are.
And it's not just that. The protections are obviously strong for speech, but it's the fact that Pam Bondi, when given the order, was without question went after these people who we know have these free speech protections by virtue of who they are, and yet she still didn't care. She still went after them because they are. What did you say before? Working towards the leader.
Oh, I think the phrase is working towards the Führer, Chris. But Führer means leader, so that would be
I would say working towards the leader. I would never want to imply that he was anything more than the leader.
Well, to be fair, he's building quite a few camps there. There are
camps being built. I think there's one in Pennsylvania going up. There's one, obviously, there's Alligator Alcatraz in Florida to concentrate people in certain places. Yeah. So
not death camps. I want to be clear, not death camps.
They're not death camps.
But they are literal concentration camps. That's what concentration camps are. The Nazis called them concentration camps because they were lying and they were actually death camps. But concentration camps kill a lot of people. And
we've had them before in America. We've had them in World War II, where we went after just Japanese people, not Germans, not Russians. Anyway, so again, they failed, but it doesn't matter because all you really need to do is to attack, and Trump will be happy. Exactly. Maybe as happy as he is when he's with his assistant and staffer in the Oval Office. I won't get into it. You'll just have to read it.
I don't want to think about that, Chris. Damn you.
We got to kind of squish 2 into a very small amount of time. But let's talk about this redactions thing, or squish 3 into a limited amount of time. I'm going to test you. Let's see how quickly we can get through 3 things.
Yeah, God. Okay,
redacted redactions.
Yeah. Okay. So my cryptic message at the very beginning was in response to the fact that Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, 2 of the members of the House who have really taken the lead on the Epstein files. These are the guys who corralled enough people to get the discharge petition to actually get the Epstein Files Transparency Act passed. They have been pissed about the redactions because anyone would be who's not, interested in protecting pedophiles.
In on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, the Department of Justice invited them to come and see the unredacted Epstein files that have been released, right? So they can check out the redactions themselves. Everything is perfectly above board. No, you can't take any notes. You are not allowed to. Right. No. No, you just exactly right. So under strict supervision and all the rest of it, but you can totally go and check and see, and they did. And do you want to know what they found, Chris?
Please tell me.
That the unredacted files that the Department of Justice holds are redacted. Because you see, the Department of Justice is effectively saying the files we have were redacted when we got them.
That is insane.
They were already redacted when we got here. I don't know, whose mess this is. It was like this when I bought it.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So they redacted files and definitely didn't keep the unredacted files. They just have permanently redacted files on file. Exactly. And we don't know who redacted those files as well because we're the Department of Justice. It's hard for us to do things.
Exactly. How would they possibly know about the legal provenance of the fucking documents that they have and have had for months?
But they were also able to redact the accused, though. Anyways, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So it's delightful. So what's great here is that basically they took a bunch of redacted files and then put redactions over the redactions. They put a black bar over the black bar, and so when they unredacted it, they took the black bar off the black bar, so you could see the black bar underneath the black bar. So two redactions do not make a clarification. It turns out.
No, it doesn't. And again, this is more chicanery from the Trump administration. I have no idea. We can assume why they want to do this, but
at this point, we got to draw the adverse inference. It's not even close anymore.
Everyone's calling it a cover up. Everyone's calling it a cover up.
It is, in the sense that it's a literal cover up.
In the sense that it's obviously covering up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, this ICE agent. We're going to end on something fun, but this ICE agent is terrible in Minnesota. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So in Minnesota, there was recently a sting done to uncover online child sex predators, basically. They had someone pretend to be a 17-year-old and then see who was going to ask this random 17-year-old on the internet for sex. It's like when the cops do that boat, like you've won a boat. And they do it to people who have like a bunch of tickets and they go in for the vote and they get arrested immediately because of outstanding tickets. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So, this is delightful, obviously, as you can tell, because they caught like over 20 people. Like over 20 people fell for this.
Wow. That's too many.
One is too many. 20 is Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
But amongst them, Chris, was one particularly interesting dude, because this dude, when they arrested him, said, "I'm ICE, boys."
Oh no!
Oh yeah.
ICE, boys.
Yeah. He identified himself as someone who worked for ICE, as if that would mean that he would not be arrested for soliciting a child to have sex.
That's so bad. And obviously he assumed that, guys, I'm with Trump. It's cool. I'm with Trump. Yeah. I get to do what I want because we're the stormtroopers. Come on.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Like, what's the point of being in the SS if you can't fuck a child?
If I can't be in the secret police, then what's the point? Like,
exactly.
That's why they wear the masks, guys.
Yeah, one might suggest at this point. But so this dude, this ICE agent, who was, literally caught in the act of soliciting a child for, sexual purposes. So that's, great. Identifies himself as an ICE agent. It does not help him. I am delighted to say the police officers are like, okay, duly noted. And you are very much under arrest right now. Turns out that this guy is not a frontline ICE agent. He's not someone out in the streets, kidnapping abuelitas. He's not someone who's out there, zip tying 14-year-old girls. He's not someone out there, leaving 5-year-old children out on the street to freeze in the middle of fucking winter while he arrests their parents.
Yeah.
No, his job is way worse than that, Chris, because his job is to vet the new ICE agents.
Oh my God. Vetting. Oh my God.
Yep.
That's
his job is to check and see and make sure that all the new ICE agents, right, are on the up and up.
Which makes sense when you think about the shit vetting that ICE agents go through. It used to go through a much deeper process, but now it's just, hey, yo, you want to hold a gun? Yeah. Can you hold that gun? Barely. Can you do a push-up? No. Can you run? No. Can you read? Barely. I mean, this has all come out from I think leaks and stuff. But
we had that story about that reporter basically who,
Who got a job with ICE.
Yeah, who got a job with ICE without doing anything beyond like showing up and putting in a form on the internet, basically.
Yeah, it was a real CV. There was a real person. She used a real history, but she's a big old lefty, and they gave her a job without even with there was no check. They didn't even clearly didn't do a background check.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the veterans were busy trying to have sex with children. So
well, apparently, at least one of them was.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's terrible.
Yeah,
and I mean,
they're not sending their best, Chris. They're not sending their best.
They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, and the veterans are trying to have sex with kids.
Seriously, and I think it's a fair thing to say going forward. Everything that the Trump administration has said about Haitian immigrants, about immigrants from Mexico, about people that doesn't like, every single one of those things is basically them saying, "Well, we're doing that, but we
know this is bad because we know." We know it's bad because we do this.
Every accusation is a confession.
Every accusation is a confession. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about, which is a little bit nicer than the last two subjects. So I know we're not supposed to watch Surrounded by Jubilee. I know that it's a bit it's a bit much.
It is. I mean, in the sense that they did, have a whole thing of like, let's have this Jew confronted by 20 Nazis. That'll be fun. Like I mean, it's Surrounded is. I mean, it's a vibe.
It's not debate as much as it is screaming now. But there was one guy named Isiah Martin who ran for Congress, I think, in Texas, and his thing kept on popping up on my screen over and over and over again. And the thing is that Isiah Martin and I talk very similarly. We just talk quietly and we talk slowly. And we just drill the point in slowly but surely. And he is going up against just people who are just they're all MAGA aficionados. And so basically you had one person versus 20 MAGAs. And I finally caved after like a week or two of getting this on all of my feeds, and I listened to it because I cannot watch Jubilee. I cannot watch Surrounded. It's so ridiculous. But I was able to watch it, and it was interesting to listen to because I'll leave it with the last guy. So there was another dude in the room who was running for office as well against Adam Schiff. And after everybody had their go at Isiah gets to pick one person to have a debate with. And the person who he picks gets to basically ask Isiah the questions and have Isiah defend his position. And this dude comes up and he's like, my prompt is, Democrats hate America. And I'm like, first off, hang on. Your prompt is that Democrats hate America. That is it. So Isiah was like, Doe just failed and Trump is bad for the economy and things like that. And his was Democrats hate America. And obviously he's trying to create clips for whatever his social media is. But I was just like, that is your big gambit. That's your appeal to MAGA is that Democrats hate America. And obviously Isiah sat there quietly and was just like, and I listened to most of it and just like he kept on finding the holes in his issue. But I did find it quite entertaining for a while because, that side of the argument, basically all they had were really weak attacks. And then if they couldn't get that over, they would just yell at Isiah and said, you hate America, much like Pam Bondi did. But it gave me some hope because the way to counter these people isn't by matching their energy. It's by calmly and almost quietly, like, sticking in the acupuncture needle right into the eye. And
it reminds me a little bit of like one of the last scenes in The Great Gatsby, in the book and in the films and all the rest of it. Yeah. Like the big cathartic moments happens when, Jay Gatsby, the guy is sort of
spoiler alert.
Right. Well, I know I'm spoiling a book that's literally over 100 years old and is now in the public domain. So, suck it. People who haven't read a book yet. So there you go. But yeah, so Jay Gatsby, this millionaire, guy who's basically trying to, get his, the woman he's infatuated with. Yeah, he's trying to, win her away from her, billionaire husband, basically. And the way that the billionaire wins is by getting Jay Gatsby to yell at him. getting him to lose his cool,
Yeah, that's
getting
right.
him to get angry. And the second he snaps, that's when Daisy, who is,
Yes, Daisy
the woman in
Buchanan.
question, all of a sudden is like, never mind, guys. I'm going back to being fabulously wealthy instead of just sort of wealthy. Sorry, Gatsby. And then basically Gatsby dies almost immediately afterwards, but not from
pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. And I agree. And the way that I was looking at it is, how does Gatsby die in the book? He dies by so it's Daisy and Tom Buchanan, and Daisy and Tom basically says, he gets the Tom is having an affair with the lady who works in whose husband works at like a gas station.
Yeah, exactly. Gas station mechanic, who tunes up Tom's car.
Yes. Yep. And so when Daisy and Gatsby are having an affair as well. But when Tom finds it out, Tom can't do it himself because he's a weak little man. So he basically gets he manipulates the husband of the gas station attendant, a poorer person who doesn't have as much resources as him, just based off pure emotion and anger, to get to Gatsby's house after he has lost the woman, but he still has all of his money and he can maybe get better. And he shoots him in his pool. And I think that's a really good analogy for how, the incredibly rich take the poor to do their dirty work and then step on their backs as they pretend like nothing happened. And that's effectively what happens in The Great Gatsby. So,
that's the thing. There's the line at the end, I think, sums it up really well. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and people and retreated into their vast wealth or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together.
Absolutely. So hopefully we don't allow ourselves to be ruled by these kind of people, but who knows? Don't be the gas station attendant. Be the cousin. And we're going to end on this. What was the name of the
Nick
cousin?
Carraway. Be Nick Carraway. And watch everything and be like, God damn, these people are fucking weird.
These people are terrible.
Yep.
And if you can, watch the movie. Robert Redford plays Jay Gatsby, and it is a revelation.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
Is so good. But yeah, that's all the time we have for this week. I've got a packed weekend, and Patrick's got stuff to do as well.
Yep.
So, as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we are doctors,
not doctors.
Good night.